Hi, everyone. We're back. I feel like ever since I listened to the last podcast of the Inspired Unemployed, I don't ever want to say welcome back to the Conscious Cowboys
Like actually
ever
never.
again.
Yes,
like
I know.
I will never say it again.
I know.
I wrote it down in my notes to just completely change it. So I'd rather get on and be like, hi,
Yeah.
you have Madison and Tess.
Sure.
So that's how it's going to be. And we'll come up with different things from there.
Okay.
So how's it going, everyone?
I know. I mean, if you're asking me, I just got over COVID. I got it again, which was shite, but it wasn't that bad this time around. And luckily you didn't get it, even though we were.
I know. I feel happy to say I haven't really gotten sick the last 2 times that you've gotten sick. You know, like that is a pat on my back.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. And I don't know why that's happened, but I'm happy that I haven't gotten sick.
And I was telling you, I'm pretty excited for you that you aren't getting sick, but then also at the same time, I'm like, what the fuck? Then why am I? You know, like, come on, immune system. What's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, it's great. And yeah, just so you know, it's okay if your roommate has it and you might not get it. You know, you
That's
might be
true.
in the clear.
Yeah.
And we were like not avoiding each other really.
No, not completely. No.
So, but yeah, we're feeling good and had a great little weekend, the two of us. So now we're on to our work week and potting, and it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over this past weekend, I listened to a podcast episode, and there was 3 takeaways that I took from Jay Shetty, which if you're not familiar, he has his own podcast. He's like quite well known. Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't someone telling us recently they were talking some shit?
They
on
were.
Jay Shetty. And
But
I
you know
actually
what?
don't even remember who it was.
I don't either, but I feel like people talk shit all the time.
Oh, they talk shit about everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. But I just like to hear people's opinion, whether
Yeah.
it's good or bad.
So some people love him and some people not so much, but I thought he had some valid points to say. So of course it was on Caller Daddy. You know, I'm a big listener at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it was like her most recent episode with him. And the first takeaway, which I thought was really interesting, and it's definitely something that you have tried to teach me in the past, but it's always helpful when you hear it.
Oh, it's better to hear from Alex Cooper.
Okay,
that
was
makes
it?
sense.
Okay. Don't put fucking words in my mouth.
That's basically what you said. No, I'm kidding. I don't care.
No. Hold on. Okay. First and foremost, it wasn't Alex who said it. It was Jay.
Oh, okay. So Jay.
And the
On a first name basis.
maybe
Jay.
Shut the fuck up. Okay. No, but what I'm trying to say here is that maybe it stuck with me better the second time around.
Yes.
You know, like it's
no, you definitely don't have to
confirmation.
explain yourself at all. This happens a lot. But I like that you recognize that I had said it previously.
Yeah. When I was
Yes.
listening to him say it, I was like, oh my
No,
God,
I
this
just
is.
wanted to give you some shit.
Yeah,
'cause I
thank
thought
you.
It was funny.
Yeah, no, I like it. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're laughing. So, just kidding.
I just am silent. You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
I
fuck.
was like,
just
I'm
kidding.
just kidding. Everything's a joke, everyone. Okay. So what he said, and maybe the reason it stuck with me is because he seems to explain things in a visual way. But he was saying, let people earn their stripes. Don't just hand them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was talking in more terms of kind of like dating and stuff, but this applies to everything.
Yes.
And basically what I took away from it was when you start putting someone high up on your list or on a pedestal kind of in the early days and you don't really know them yet, you're setting yourself up for a letdown or disappointment or maybe even some hurt depending on how like excited you get about that person. And yeah, I think we all know that like that's not groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think it's a good reminder, and I don't find myself doing this as of recent. This was more so like last year when I was single and dating around. Like I kind of fell into that trap, and you'd be like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like this, you don't even know them yet, you know?
Yeah.
Let them prove themselves to you. And it took me a while, but I'm glad to say thanks for the advice.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks Jay, homie,
Yeah.
for
What up,
reinforcing
Jay?
it. But yeah, he was basically just saying like, try not to have too many expectations, which is basically just hope, right? Like try not to have too much set out for that person. Just kind of more so let them show you who they are and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a few things. Is when you said, I feel like expectations and hope are different. Only because it's like, yes, we hope for things, but I'm not hardcore factually expecting this person
Sure,
to
and
be
like,
this way. Like I
okay.
hope to have a really fit, ambitious driven husband who loves me a lot.
Okay. But that's not your
Versus-
expectation.
Yeah,
of that
but I
person.
would have, if I was dating that so-called person right now, I would hope that they'd be that way, but I wouldn't have those expectations. I would want them to show me first,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that they really do bleed into each other so much, though, that it's hard for me to kind of decipher, well, what is just a hope and then what's an expectation?
Yes. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, that's what he was saying. And then it brought me back to what he was saying is basically like you're assuming, like you're giving them stripes based on something you like about them. So for example, there was this guy that I was into, right? And I talked about him in a previous episode where I was like, on paper, this guy was like all these things that I was interested in. And someone was like, why do you have a list? Like, why do you have stuff on paper? I'm like, no, I didn't actually write a list here, guys. But just like,
and also we did have a list. Who fucking cares?
Sure. But I'm just saying, like, that's not what I did, you know, but whatever. Okay. So
like, I swear to God, I did not make a list. Just so everyone knows, there was no list made.
Okay. So this guy, right? I just like, there were things about him that I liked, right? That he was like a professional athlete and that he, you know, was very driven and he knew a lot about things that I was interested in. And so I started giving him like get out of jail free cards, for example, you know, like I started going, oh, well, I like so much about him that like I'm kind of assuming that he's going to be wonderful to me and he's going to be like fun to be with. And he wasn't, you know?
Right.
But that was where I got caught up. So I thought, also hearing that post that experience, it really stuck with me of like, yeah you
sense.
did that, Tess, and you didn't have to do that.
Right. So you assumed that because, and this is just an example, that he was a professional athlete and fulfilled all these other things that are on your imaginary list, that other things would accompany that, like being nice to you and actually
correct. Like I was like, oh, he's like such a great guy, you know? Because he's great in all these other areas. So then he's probably going to be like my ideal match, you know?
Okay.
But no. Yeah. Wow, that was a long shot, you know?
Yes.
Just like assuming that it was going to be wonderful when I had barely even gotten to know the guy, you know?
Right. You just hoped.
I had hope.
You did have hope.
Correct.
Yeah. No, I understand. That's a good point. I'm glad that he brought that home for you.
And I just thought, hey, maybe I can save someone else some stress, you know?
Yeah.
Like, don't give people the stripes before they've earned them.
Yeah. Let people show you who they are for the most part. But I remember I was talking to you about that. I don't know if we talked about it on a podcast, but then you gave me an example that was a real life example that a man or these men showed themselves to whoever we're talking about.
Okay.
And they were faking. So then it's like,
ooh. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So then I'm like, oh, shit. Maybe let them show you, but also like have a filter. I don't know. I don't really know.
Right? This gets like sketchy territory because what she was bringing up is like someone that I know. These guys were coming in and like swooping them off their feet and like all the actions were great. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is going so well for you. And then it was a quick 180 and these people were not at all what they were showing her. So then it's like, well, how much do you let people show you, you know?
Or how much do you believe? I don't know, because then I don't want to not trust in people.
Correct.
So I guess you just trust them until something bad happens. I don't know.
And then you have a good laugh and you move on.
Yeah, exactly. Then at least you have a funny story to tell.
Thanks for bringing that point up too.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Well, I remember you told me that and I was just like, oh my God, I have been saying this type of shit on the podcast for so long, but here's a real life example that disproves that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Point number 2 of what he brought up in the podcast. The idea that the spark is gone. Okay. So you hear that a lot, right? Like when people are dating someone kind of past the honeymoon phase, let's say, and they say things like if they're starting to like kind of lose interest, they say stuff like the spark is gone. And so this is what his explanation was. Again, very visual. That's why it stuck with me.
It works, yes.
He was basically saying that the spark is essentially chemistry, right? Like that's how we recognize it. And the chemistry is important. But he says that it could also be the stress you feel in your body as you're trying to navigate this new territory with this person of like, do I like them? Do they like me? All of those things that kind of swirl around in your head when you're getting to know someone on that level, right? Yeah. So he's like, sometimes that like spark is you're confusing like the stress of the situation. Not that it's like stressful, but like, you know, it's an element of stress.
Yeah, it's like the catch of it. Or not the catch, but kind of like the game. Yeah.
So he's like, you're confusing that for like the chemistry here. And then once you get past that phase with someone where like you're in, there's no like big question marks, they can feel like, oh, well, that whole like mystery, that allure is gone.
Yeah.
And he's like, but okay, but that's because the stress of the situation has now come down. And he says it's better to gauge that. Like, he's like, I don't want to hear that anymore. And I mean, I'm not verbatim, right? But he was just basically saying like, that's not really like a thing for him. He feels like you should base your connection with someone on like the long burning candle of like, well, did that spark now start a flame? And do you actually have connection with this person? And do you feel safe and you feel comfortable? Like, those are things that you should measure. And obviously you still want to feel like there's chemistry between you and someone, but the whole idea of like the spark is gone. He's like, well, that's just because the stress of the situation's gone.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that.
I don't know. I was just like, huh, okay.
Well, yeah. I feel like there's so many things. Well, okay. So first off, I was like getting in my head because I was thinking that we were talking about, which everyone does this. It's very rare that people have an original thought because it's like, you know, we heard it from our friend or whatever. But I was getting in my head and I was like, oh my God, we're basically talking about someone else's podcast, but reviewing it in a sense. But then I talked myself out of it and I was like, no, we're expanding these ideas so that we understand it and our listener base can hear it too, because they were not listening to the episode.
Of course, like maybe you guys have not even heard of that podcast before.
Correct. And you're like, who the fuck is Jay Shetty?
Right.
Which you should listen to him. But
yeah.
But so anyway, about the spark is that I definitely feel that, but I'm trying to like decipher in my head of like if that spark is stress, like in my definition, or like that feeling of like butterflies of like, ooh, I like this person. I think it just depends on your interpretation of what the spark is. But yes, sometimes I think that it is like the game and the kind of like the anxiety of like, oh my God, do they like me? Or like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then I also, I don't know. It's a good point though.
Yeah. It's not like everything that he said, I'm like, all right, this is Bible, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this to me is just interesting concepts that he was throwing around that I thought were maybe intriguing and something definitely that we could talk about, because we talk about this stuff a lot just on a personal level. And I was like, maybe our listeners would want to hear about it.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, the final point. Ready? My Face ID on my iPhone needs to work. Okay. And this one, I think, is just a friendly reminder. And I know that we have a lot of our friends in the dating pool right now, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And, you know, they can get kind of bummed out if it doesn't work, right? So one of his points was, just because you're incompatible with someone doesn't mean you're not great. And like, yeah, okay, we all know that. And we've all heard that.
Yeah.
But I thought it was like a sweet little reminder. There's one friend that comes to my mind where I'm like, oh, you know, like, it's okay. Like, just because it's not her, it doesn't matter, you know, like, it doesn't tarnish your value. Like, you don't have to get down about it. Like, let's pick up and move on. And I just feel like sometimes when you're not compatible with someone, or they don't recognize your value, or whatever it is, even if it's nothing to do with you, like they're just not in that place to date you specifically, like, it's okay.
Yes, you know? It's definitely okay.
Like, it's just not your person. You just move on.
Yeah, I feel like one of our friends that we were hanging out with a little while back would always say a statement, and then he would be like, respectfully. And I feel like I've carried that this whole, like, ever since I met him. And I've said that with so many things of like, yeah, if they don't like you, like, have a great life, wish them the best. It's not going to work out. Respectfully, have a great life, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's fucking awesome.
It's true. Like, all right.
Yeah. Like, with respect, don't talk to me. You know?
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like, getting down about that is kind of silly. I understand it, but I feel like I really try to not be bummed out about those things, and I give myself a lot of validation, like on a personal level, so that if someone isn't into me, I'm like, well, that's okay, because I know.
Yeah, I'm into me.
Yeah.
Right.
And that there's other people out there for me. Mm-hmm.
And then there's one more topic. This does not have anything to do with the podcast I listen to. This has to do with my friend. She has always used this phrase, or like kind of this analogy, in terms of like someone's light being on. And then she sent me a TikTok that was like a clip from Sex in the City.
Yes.
Which, okay, let's talk about this for a second, and then we can move on from like the whole dating world. But she always would be like, well, it's okay, like if he's not like talking about like longevity with you or whatever, because his light just might not be on right now, and like who knows, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, whatever the timeline may be, maybe there's no timeline, his light might never come on. But basically, like, she always explained it as like it was a flip of a switch, like his light's either on and he's with it, or his light's off and he's just like doing his own thing. And then in Sex and the City, they talked about it in reference to like a cab, right? Of like, well, this cab has its light on, it's picking up people all around town, but it might not ever be ready to pick people up, you know, like it's just doing it to do it. Or like it's light off and it's not picking up anybody, or it's lights on ready to drive someone home. So anyways, very visual, very long-winded. I just thought that was interesting to hear that. And they basically say, like, in Sex and the City, that people end up marrying whoever's in front of them when they're ready. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's like the right person. It's just more so like the time in their life. And then that made me really sad, because I'm like, that is really common. And I don't ever want to do that. I don't ever want to be like, well, I'm 38 and I'm still single, so I'm just going to marry him because he's right in front of me, and fuck, I might not ever find someone, so let's just get married. Like, if that happens, please drag me out by the hair. Like, do not.
Okay.
I'm just
you'd be like, I'm telling you he's the one. I'd be like, are you sure? Like, how
I
the
hope
fuck
you
would I
question me.
say
Like,
that?
fucking interrogate me.
Yeah.
Don't let me get away with stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen in my life, but I'm just saying, if anyone ever sees me pulling that stuff, correct me.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's common. I feel like what comes to mind for me is like when you see celebrities and they like randomly are dating someone who's not a celebrity, and you're just like, how did that even happen? You know? And then they like end up getting married to them, and you're just like, what the heck? But I think it's just because they were in front of them at that specific time, you know? Like, they were ready, searching for it, and then this person happened to come into their life, and that's
And like
just
they're
what happened.
available, and it's great.
But isn't that what happens?
Yeah, I guess.
I feel like that just is what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that it's wrong,
right?
But
no. I think,
but it's more so like,
you're
I don't want
about settling,
right?
maybe.
Like, I don't want to choose someone based on the time in my life and my needs. For like, I want to be like stoked about the person I'm with, you know?
Yeah, and I think since I've watched Sex and the City literally so many times over like the entirety of the show, is that I think that I don't think they were talking about settling. It was mostly like men are taxi cabs. Like, that was their reference. And it was like men are more simple in those terms, you know? And when they're ready, they're just, I don't know, going to pick the women that are in their proximity. And that's just what happens. But isn't that what happens? That is, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so even
from
if
what
they
I've
moved to
seen,
Australia and it was like the first 6 people they met and they were like, oh, well, this girl's awesome, let's date, and then they get married. I don't know. That's just kind of like life. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the fucking answers. I was just like, interesting. That's in my vision now. And okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think that is true, though. I mean, we have to be ready, obviously. Because even if like a shiny new toy comes in front of me and I'm just like, not ready. And that's just what happens. I'm
sorry.
Like,
I missed the boat. Respectfully missed the boat. Wasn't ready.
Full circle. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all from me.
Okay. So no, that was great. Okay. So we were thinking, I don't even want to do it now. Now I feel silly to do it.
Okay.
We wanted to have like a thing at the end of a podcast. Now I feel weird.
Oh my God.
it.
She can hardly
oh my
say
God,
it.
I feel embarrassed. Of just things. It's like, you know how sometimes you go, I don't really go to Instagram to make me feel good, but like Tumblr is my thing. Maybe it's like Pinterest for other people. But you're kind of feeling low and you're just like, okay, you know, I've journaled, I've taken a bath, whatever, the fucking self-care stuff. And now I need to go see something. I don't know,
inspired.
a movie. Yeah. So I'm on Tumblr a lot, and I feel like there are so many quotes and things that spark like joy within me or happiness, or it like reminds me of who I am. And so we wanted to have a segment at the end of this episode, and maybe more episodes to come, that we're just sharing those things.
Okay.
And now
some feel good shit, and you're not going to get in your head, Madison. You're fine.
All right.
Okay.
So
She's
I
gonna
feel like
implode.
no, okay, I feel like how this has specifically happened to me in like 7th grade in science class, where they would pick you like popcorn for reading.
The worst
and you're
thing
just
in
like,
the
I
world.
hate myself right now. Like everyone's saying I have to read this fucking textbook.
Yeah, and you can. It's almost like you're having an out of body experience where you can hear yourself
yes,
talking.
You can. Like I'm above myself looking at me reading. I'm like, you fucking suck. Oh my god.
Okay, well, if that's how you really feel, please don't go on to read this.
No, because I feel like, I think it's because I get in my head of like, is this even important? I should have had you read it.
You know what?
Before you did it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, no, I feel confident
To
in my reading
proofread?
skills. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to go for it. So if you're still listening, thanks. Okay, so now I feel like Tess is staring.
Oh my god!
No,
Okay,
I'm kidding. No, okay.
Okay. Oh yeah,
All right,
clear that
so
throat.
my dad and I once had a disagreement over him using the adage, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I said, "That's not true. Sometimes what doesn't kill you leaves you brittle and injured or traumatized." He stopped and thought about that for a while. He came back later and said, "It's like wood glue." He pointed to my bookshelf, which he helped me salvage a while ago. He said, "Do you remember how I explained that? Once we used the wood glue on them, the shelves would actually be stronger than they were before they broke." I did. But before we used the wood glue, those shelves were broken. They couldn't hold up shit. If you had put books on them, they would have collapsed, and the wood glue had to set a while. If we put anything on them too early, they would have collapsed just the same as if we'd never fixed them at all. You've got to give these things time to set. It sounded like a pretty good metaphor to me, but one thing I did pick up on was that whatever broke those shelves, that's not the thing that made them stronger. That just broke them. It was being fixed that made them stronger. It was the glue. So my dad and I agreed, what doesn't kill you doesn't actually make you stronger, but healing does. And if you feel like healing hasn't made you stronger than you were before, you probably aren't done healing. You've got to give things time to set.
Okay,
Aww.
thanks so much for reading that and getting out of your own way. That's really good.
Yeah. But I was just like, oh, that's a good little think piece, Mm-hmm. But I read that and I was just like, dude, yes.
Yeah, well, and also you live with someone like me who's like, okay, quick, let's move past it and let's get on. And you're like, well, hold on. Like, let's make sure the glue has fucking set before we start piling more shit on. Like, let's chill for a sec. And it's true. Mm-hmm. I also, now this is going like back to the actual story itself. I did not know that wood glue made the wood stronger than it was before. Like if the wood like breaks and then you use wood glue on it.
I guess it kind of makes sense that it would make it a little stronger
than the original piece of.
Well, maybe only after we're getting like technical. There's like a carpenter listening and they're like, yo, that's not it. But maybe it's like if the wood it's just not the correct terminology, but if it like eroded. Also, every time I say eroded.
Erode!
Yeah, I think of Bruce Almighty. Dude, when he's doing the news segment at Niagara Falls.
Yeah, like a half an inch from the camera.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But when the wood, anyway, is kind of eroding, and that's not the correct word, but it's weaker, and then you use wood glue, then it would make it stronger.
Yeah, but I think from what I'm visualizing is like the wood piece itself is fresh.
And then you add wood glue, and then it's fine.
Well, no, and then it breaks, and then you add wood glue to fix it, and they're saying now that's stronger than it was before it was even broken, and that's shocking to me. That's all.
I mean, who even knows if that's factual, but yeah.
But I did like the story.
Good.
I do appreciate you taking time and effort to read that, so thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
I think the episode is a lot better now that we've heard that story. And
I'm not sarcastic.
No, I'm not being facetious. I really did enjoy it. Yeah.
But yeah, I find joy like in those small things of just like quotes or stories like that, because then I feel like it just reminds me that we're all human and we're all having different experiences, but in the end, the outcomes are pretty similar. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, cool. I think that's it for us this week.
Yeah. Feel good about that.
Yeah. Well, until next time, guys.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone has a great week if you're still listening after the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, off
click.
next.
Madison's reading a story.
Unsubscribe.
Exactly.
No, guys, make sure you're subscribed to the
Yeah.
podcast. Share it with your friends, please, and thank you. We need the cowboy community to grow.
Yeah.
So we can quit our jobs.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
True.
That's 100% true. All right.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Talk to you next week.
All right, bye, guys.